Here's how I like to scalp the Nasdaq futures and maximize my profits using the volume delta histogram indicator. First off, on this chart at the moment, I've got the Nasdaq loaded. This was recent price action about a day ago, and it's set on a 1 minute time frame. On the lower panel here, I've got my volume delta histogram indicator loaded. What it basically does, it displays the net volume up or down for every single candle, in this case a 1 minute time frame. Right, so if it gives these red sort of bars to the downside, it tells me that more sellers were involved in this market during that candle's formation. Whereas on the opposite side, the green bars to the upside, or what we call histograms, would show that more buyers for that particular candle was present during the formation of that candle. Now, for each little candle, if you have to look at every single histogram up or down, it can get quite confusing. But using volume delta also tells a very important story, especially when it comes to scalping. For example, recently the Nasdaq was trading lower and lower and lower and lower until some stage where price made a low, and then we had an increase, or let's say a strong bounce to the upside, accompanied by a huge increase in buying volume on the volume delta histogram side. Also displayed by this huge peak that we've seen around about the 9:30 a.m. mark. Alright, so if you look at volume delta over a certain period of time, typically during strong trending conditions like we've seen over here, price was moving lower into a low. And you can also see that while price was moving lower, that the volume delta histogram also started showing an increase in selling pressure. Alright, and then until that stage where price actually made a low, the price was moving lower, and in this case, beautiful example of how volume delta started drying up, and then at a very particular point in time, price made a strong move back to the upside with a huge increase in the volume delta histogram, showing that buyers were very fast stepping into this market. Now, that on its own is not necessarily an indication that there's going to be a reversal in the market, which is why we incorporate the volume delta histogram indicator as part of a trading strategy. If you just had to look at pure price action, you can see that price was also making lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, which defines a downtrend. And then accompanied by this increase in the volume delta histogram to the upside, where buyers stepped in, you can see there was a break of previous price structure around about the 9:33 a.m. mark, which is typically where a lot of volume starts coming into the indices, in this case looking at the Nasdaq. Now this would be a specific clue that I'm going to start having to look for long positions in the Nasdaq. And what is very, very, very important about this particular scalping strategy that I use is that there is a very, very, how can I say, recurring instance in the market where we get a specific type of reversal, which was called the morning liquidity run, during a time window starting between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. So it's a 2-hour time window that you typically start seeing a shift or change in direction. Now, if you had to look a little bit backwards in time, leading into, even during the overnight session, leading into that time window between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m., the Nasdaq was trending lower pretty strongly. All right, so knowing that we typically get a reversal during that time window, you can then, even though price was trending lower and it was a very strong downtrend, you can then start looking for a type of a reversal trade. All right, so break of structure, increase of volume on the volume delta histogram in the opposite direction, break of previous structure during that time window is a good indication that I would, for example, like to go long. Right, now this is on a 1 minute time frame, and you can see even though price made a move to the upside, there was a stage where this actually reached an overnight session high, which is typically a target that we'll be targeting, a very big one for a scalp trade. And there will be sort of little targets on the way while price does move to the upside. We can see that even as price made this high into this peak before the trend continued downwards again, most of the profits were already taken, but you can see that volume has increased into a high, right about this area over here. Let me just drop a vertical line in here. And then as price continued higher, it made a little high, and then it made a slightly higher high. And while it was also doing that, you can see that we had a very strong drop in buying volume, followed by a massive increase in selling volume, again indicating that this potential bounce has potentially ended, and that the trend which was previously down potentially was about to resume again. But that being said, obviously it's all really cool to show you all of these things in hindsight, but when it actually comes to real trading, it's obviously a completely different story. That's why using in most cases an indicator on its own can be very useful, but in combination with a strategy like this one that I've just shown you here, which is just a small glimpse of what is possible when you do start incorporating indicators to give you that extra confidence that during this time frame, for example, that what we're looking, or when we are looking for a reversal, that reversal is indeed actually going to potentially work out. All right, so that's how I use the volume delta histogram. It's a very important tool that I use in most of my trading strategies. And when it comes to scalping, volume plays a very integral part in that. Knowing exactly what the buyers and sellers are doing, incorporating that in a strategy can really give you that edge that you've been looking for. If you like this indicator, or would like to know a bit more about the morning liquidity run strategy, please check out the link in the description and consider joining our NinjaCators Fast Track program, where we'll teach you how to use this strategy in combination with the volume delta histogram. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Take care and goodbye.